Welcome to Wise Heads, where experienced specialists share practical thinking to help you build a better business and make better decisions. This week, I'm joined by Javier Yebenes, a B2B marketing and technology leader who has spent a lot of time thinking about how the people inside a business can become one of its most powerful growth assets. Because increasingly, particularly in B2B, we don't just buy businesses, we buy into the people behind them. So how important is your professional reputation to the success of your business? Do CEOs and senior leaders need to become more visible? And how can businesses make better use of the expertise already sitting inside their organizations? Javier, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Adam. It is a pleasure to be here with you.
Let's start with the big idea. In B2B, how much do people ultimately buy people?
In every purchasing decision, people are just trying to minimize risk. People are trying to make a decision that they're comfortable with. And when you are making high-ticket, big purchasing decisions like we do often in B2B, that's an important factor. And you really want to make a decision that you can feel comfortable with. So for us, trust is really important. And there's no other factor that is more important to building trust than the person and the people that are behind that brand or that company that you're interacting with.
How much does simply trusting and believing in the people behind the company influence who gets chosen within those environments?
It is huge. There's two ways to look at it. One of them is when you are comparing two possible options for you, whether you're buying software, whether you're choosing a bank, a partner, whomever it is, there's times in which you're going to look at the technical capabilities, you're going to look at the features and what that product can offer to you. And when they're really close to one another, you're going to think of the people that you interacted with, whomever did the demo, who their leader is, what they stand for. And that will help you choose, right? So you're going to lean towards the one that you build more rapport towards or the one that inspires you more confidence. But the other way I like to think about it in the brand world, when you're making the job the right way, it is about making things the other way around. It's about being in people's mind so that when they need to buy or when they need to decide that they need to get out there and get a new partner, a new product, they're not even comparing. They already know who they need to work with, because they've already been engaging with that person. And they know that's the person that can actually solve the problem they're having. So if you actually do the job right, the person comes into the equation well before you're actually comparing products.
So if I'm considering two suppliers as a business or two companies that look relatively similar on paper, but one has leaders and experts who are visible, knowledgeable, and respected in their industry, how much can that influence my perception of the business itself?
It's huge. In the end, a company's leader embodies the company's values and the company proposition, everything that they stand for. So if you look at the examples of some telcos and some tech companies right now around the world, some of the big ones, a lot of people stop using their software because of what the leader does, how they portray themselves, some of the things that they represent. And that translates to pretty much every single business and every single company. There's many times that we make conscious choices. We're humans, and sometimes we just make that choice based on what they portray, how they felt or the experience that we had with them. So it is really important that relationship between a leader's personal brand and what they embody. And I'm not just talking about CEOs. This extends to pretty much the whole company. But it's a very important relationship between their personal brands and what they embody, and whether we choose or not to work with them.
Business leaders are really busy. They don't have a lot of time to write content for the likes of LinkedIn, etc. Some business leaders outsource that LinkedIn content generation. Others might just plug it into AI. And others might take the time to actually just write something themselves to demonstrate that capability and expertise. What's your perspective on that?
What are you doing in your everyday that is more important to you than the success of your company? So when you're actually making decisions and when you're prioritizing your time, I hear a lot I don't have time for this, I'm too busy. What are you doing that is more important to you than the reputation of your company? What are you doing that is more important to you than ensuring that your sales team are enabled to sell? Is the action that you're doing half an hour today that you're investing on more important than creating the trust that is going to accelerate pipeline to you, which in some cases might mean millions? It's just a matter of priorities. And marketing tradition, especially in New Zealand, it seems to always be the lowest priority. Be present when it matters. Don't try to be everywhere or do everything. You have to be strategic around how you choose to invest your time. Externalizing and using third parties, ghostwriters, it is valid. You can do that, and there's some really good people at doing that. But it's really important that you remain human and in control of your personal brand, of your interactions and engagement, right? Because in the end, this is not about content. It's about creating relationships, trusted relationships. So as a leader, it's really, really important that you invest some of your time in creating genuine connections with people. And for that, it needs to be you. There's no agency, there's no ghostwriter that can go there and can make a personal comment or send a direct message to someone, have that coffee for you. Those are things that you need to control yourself. Everyone has a personal brand. Whether you choose to take control of it or not, that's your choice. And it is up to you to shape it. Because if you don't, someone else will shape it for you. When you decide to take control and to shape your personal brand, you are creating a genuine effort that creates meaningful connection with people. You're creating trust, you're creating authority, and you're building credibility into your brand, into your business, into your company. If you don't do that, if you externalize it, if you sound fake, if you sound like you're not putting any effort into it, if you let other ones decide how you're being seen by the world, you risk losing that authority, that credibility, and that control that will reflect into your business. When people will come across yourself or when they're judging whether to trust your business or not, if you've got a weak brand, they will look at that and they will see, well, this is probably not a leader we can trust. How do we know that they're going to deliver if they don't even control who they are and how people look at them and their reputation?
You talked about visibility being important. What are some channels or environments where business leaders can be showing their personal brand?
I am a person that has enjoyed and built a community around myself on LinkedIn, but that doesn't mean that LinkedIn is the one and only tool and it's a holy grail. It doesn't work the same for everyone. So there are multiple platforms. Some people utilize TikTok, Reddit. So there's multiple platforms out there. Now, LinkedIn became extremely popular because particularly a few years back, it was the one and only B2B leaders place. It was the most trusted platform in the world for many years in a row. But often people these days overlook a few platforms that don't get the attention that they deserve. And those are the local communities. Those are the local meetups, your industry events. But the other one is one-on-ones. One-on-one is a channel. Meeting for that coffee, having that mentorship opportunity, having that catch up that you do every now and then with another leader to create that connection, to build that credibility, to ensure that they know that they matter to you. That's something that is often overlooked. When we're looking at digitals, of course, you've got the channels that you control, like your blog, your newsletter, your website, webinar series. But in the end, getting that exposure, if you want to have an exponential reach, it's when you can actually leverage being a podcast guest, participating as a guest contributor in media in someone else's blog, and then channels like LinkedIn, Reddit, the Meta platforms, obviously Blue Sky X, a lot of other ones which are a little bit more media driven, but definitely LinkedIn for SaaS, for some particular type of businesses where people live, it has a significant amount of power.
There's obviously a big difference between being visible and being credible. What actually makes someone influential in a B2B environment?
Visibility gets short-term attention, but credibility gets the sale. You can have thousands of followers on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on whatever you want, and entertain people. Get people to have a laugh on whatever it is. That doesn't mean that they're going to trust you with their money and with their investment. You can have very few followers and be a very trusted and respected leader. You can have no social media platform and be a very trusted and respected leader. So what social media does, it helps you amplify your message. But if you have not built credibility before that, it's worth nothing. And that's why it's really, really important that you build a brand that, yes, it has a certain amount of reach and visibility that is built on credibility and authority that are both really important. When people start trusting you, when people think that, oh, this is the person that I need to go to for this particular thing, that will translate into sales. It will translate into long-term value.
One of the things you've talked about is the opportunity to turn technical leaders into a growth engine. Are businesses hiding some of their most valuable marketing assets in plain sight?
Sometimes our quietest voices are our most trusted experts. And that's a goldmine for a marketer. Traditionally, we've lived in different silos. It's happened with sales and marketing. It's happened with a product or development research team, the scientists. There's always been a disconnect. So that's been our weaknesses of us marketers a lot of the time, because we've always been labeled a little bit as the coloring department. We lack that credibility internally within the team. And that made the prominent scientists, the doctors, the engineers to think, I don't want to engage with them. I think times are changing. And right now, we've got the opportunity to actually engage and interact with those people, to extract all those uses and all that content that is extremely valuable, that is very, very useful for our customers and our prospects, and actually convert it into a marketing asset. Now, this doesn't always mean that they are the ones that need to be in front of a screen. It doesn't mean that their photo has to be everywhere. What it means is that we need to be able to leverage their knowledge if they want to participate with their persona, if they want to be part of it and they want to be enhanced how they are seen, we can do that. But otherwise, we just need to make sure that we extract all those positive thoughts that they've got and we utilize those in our marketing channels.
You describe this as the multiplier effect. What happens when you start making those people's expertise more visible?
When you make the technical teams and the thought leaders in your business more visible, when you extract that knowledge from them and you start utilizing, the authority and credibility of your brand exponentially grows. When you are compared to someone else, you are suddenly the choice that makes the most sense because you are the one that they can trust the most. If your brand is known to be the top experts in the field, or if they've got a bigger authority than the other brand, again, we're talking about risk reduction. I went with the one that seemed best. I went with the company that is known to have the biggest amount of expertise. That's always a decision that you can justify. If you know that a company has technical experts that are known and that have a personal brand, that often engage and are being invited to participate in thought leadership series, in external content, it's very easy to justify that you went with that decision. So suddenly you start seeing that conversion grows, pipeline accelerates, you start getting a lot more demand. So suddenly all your marketing and sales activities start multiplying. And that's something that is reasonably easy to measure. It's hard to find a hard measure within one day or one particular activity. But if you measure the long-term effect, you will start noticing that multiplier effect, which is when most of your metrics suddenly start improving after you start getting more personal brand and more heterogeneous thought leadership content and technical content. So the moment you start answering those questions that your customers are asking your technical team, you will notice that other people in the industry have the same questions and the same challenges. So if you start generating content that is answering those questions, that is being helpful to others, and that your technical team helps you address, suddenly you will see that people come to you because they know you can solve those problems that a marketer or a salesperson don't even have in their mind. You're just thinking about business decisions, you're thinking about outcomes, you're thinking about budgets, but you're not as embedded into the technical conversation or challenges. The marketer's dream is that we get everyone in the company to get exposure and work on their personal brand and get out there and be the white knight of the company, holding the banners. That's not going to happen. There's a lot of introverts, a lot of people that still find that there's a fourth wall over there that they don't want to break. So their reality is that you should not try to make every product or technical expert a marketer, because they are not. It's not their job. Many of them, you will find that you've got a technical expert that attends conferences. They are an introvert, but they still have their respect because people know what they built. They know their track record. They are quietly respected as much as they are comfortable with. You can cite their name within your content or their position, because in the end, if you've got a technical reader in the other side, reading your blog post or a white paper that you've written, it is not the same if a marketer says it than if you're quoting the development lead from this team or the CTO from that team. Ideally, yes, you want their face, you want their name, but otherwise you can actually play with the position. What you want in order to have that credibility and that authority is someone that has earned it to be the one quoted and the one getting that exposure. So ideally, we will want for them to have as much exposure as possible. But if you cannot do it that way, make sure that you can leverage their knowledge. Traditionally, that has been perceived by an employee as something uncomfortable that you don't want to do and something that you don't get anything in exchange for you to do it. It is up to the team leadership and the team culture to build that within. It is up to your HR team to hire the right person or to make sure that within their contract, within the previous negotiations that has been discussed, you want to have the person that fits best the position. But if you're making the decision between two people, one of them that is going to do their 9 to 5, hate the company, not want to do anything with it, go home and talk crap about the business out there, if you can choose between that person and the one that will go to an event to sing the praises and to talk about how great the business is, that will be able to defend the business or the ideas in a round table. For a marketer, there's a very obvious decision, but that needs to be embedded within the culture. As a business leader, you don't need to make it very easy. You need to show what that looks like to reduce the risk of a person putting themselves in front of something. You can train them, you can give them tools. So that's up to HR leaders, marketing departments, communication experts to come and say, look, I know this might feel daunting and it might be difficult, but if you do it, these are the positives that will happen to you if you do it. That salary raise or team leader position that you're after. If at some point you're not happy with us or you want to move on to the next thing, this is the extra exposure and credibility that you got and the respect that you get within the business. If you choose to do it, we will compensate you in a way that actually allows you to be seen like you've earned it, like you are that white knight, and we're really proud of you. Salesforce do it really, really well. They do the golden hoodies, which are really hard to get, and they're only for like the top experts and people that really earn it. But if you get one, you wear it with pride, and you get invited to speak, and you get invited to create content. So suddenly you go take people who a lot of them are introverts, and suddenly, because they've earned and won that golden hoodie, that gives you a superpower. And the reason why you should be up there, you believe in yourself, you lose a little bit of that imposter syndrome. So it's about inspiring that confidence as well as creating an incentive. 40 years ago, 50 years ago, people spend their life working for the same company. So your risk of having to move or the chance of you having to move businesses, growing within the business, it was really difficult and the chances were very low. In present times, that certainty is gone. You got multi-billion-dollar companies that go down one day to another. You got redundancies, restructures, AI is around the corner, and it's replacing people's jobs or the way we work. So when you put yourself out there, when you got a network, when you're respected, when you build authority, you are making yourself a lot more attractive to keep and a lot more attractive to hire. So suddenly your business value goes well beyond what you can actually deliver with your keyboard or with your own hands. And that's extremely important for people when they want to justify a pay rise, when they want to justify a promotion, or when they want to see what's there in the market. So if you have that platform, if you've got that credibility and that authority, suddenly you're in an advantageous position to ask for any of those.
Content's never been easier to generate than it is right now. What's the difference between useful expertise and the enormous amount of fairly generic thought leadership we're all exposed to these days?
The content generated by AI has already surpassed in the past few years all the content created by humanity and recorded in history in over 3,500 years. And that's been within the past 3-4 years. So the amount of content that is out there, it's beyond ridiculous. And there's a lot of AI fluff, and there's a lot of content that is redundant and that is not contributing any value. So we don't need more content. We need to be useful to the people that we want to target and that we interact with. And when you're useful, you build trust and you build credibility and you build authority. So we do not need to continuously be feeding the machine and creating more articles just for the sake of it and more social media posts just for the sake of it. Yeah, it is important to have visibility and be current and be present, But it's really, really important that we look at the content that we create and we say, this is valuable to the people on the other side, and this is something that they will enjoy. When you're creating content, there's always the traditional way to look at it, and you always have to look at the balance between content that entertains, that engages, or that is insightful. And I think these days, you need to make sure that you've got the right balance between that engagement and human connection that is still really, really relevant, and content that genuinely is answering questions in a way that it doesn't feel like you just got the AI machine or the bot just creating it. That you actually talk about real life examples, experiences, that you try to make it human by quoting that person, that you are actually showing case studies, that you can leverage video or you can leverage photography to make sure that people know that what you're saying, it's real. And you didn't just get that bot or Gen AI chatbot generated. So it's really important that we create content that answers questions and that it feels human. These days, we've got so much content that we're being exposed to that we are tending to get our blinkers on and ignore 90% of it. So if you do not have someone that genuinely adds value to people or that makes them laugh or feel something, they're just going to pass on and you're just going to be noise. And when you generate a lot of noise, you suddenly start being a little bit annoying. So you don't want to be that brand that people hate or feel like there's just noise on the wall. You want the opposite. What I've been seeing often is less content, more human and more real, more live and more video so that you can actually prove that it is you.
What about perspectives and opinions? Does building professional influence require you to actually stand for something or share a perspective on something?
Influence requires to have a point of view. For you to be a good leader, you cannot just be a follower. You need to have an opinion. You need to take some risks and you need to try to talk about trends and try to predict what the next thing is. You need to build certain authority. That doesn't mean that you need to be loud, that you need to have a contrarian opinion, but it means that you cannot just let other people make decisions and influence decisions for you. It needs to come to a point in which you are the one really driving and making the decisions for a business. If you think about a Formula One team, you can have amazing engineers, you can have a great team leader, mechanics, but in the end, the driver is the one in the pilot seat. So if you've got the safest driver that just follows the other, you're not going to win many races. But if you have that driver that takes everything that the mechanic, the developer team, the navigator, everyone else gave them to actually influence the decisions that they're making when they're in the track and to actually take risks and push forward, then it's when you really have chances to compete. Otherwise, if the person that is behind the wheel it's just like, oh no, I'm just going to see what everyone else does. That's not going to take you too far.
How will we distinguish between somebody who sounds like an expert and someone who actually is one?
Obviously, with the advance of AI capability and the more input that gets into AI, it's more difficult to differentiate. When we are differentiating, why are we differentiating? So when I'm looking at content, the outcome that I want is to get a question answered, to get help with a technical problem, to understand an outcome. I'm not too bothered about an AI machine, an AI chatbot, or Gen AI having generated content. If it's done well and it solves a question that I've got. As humans, we're still a little bit better at understanding the intrinsic motivations behind asking that question. So when you engage with a technical expert, if it's just a piece of content sitting out there, it's a little bit harder to differentiate at times who's written it, why. But when it comes to the whole experience that you are providing as a brand, as a business, as a person, it's really important that we embed the human factor of understanding what the real motivation of people is to engage with our content, what problems they are facing, so that we can actually provide value. And in the end, it's all about value. As marketers, we need to ask ourselves, is the channel and the method that we're utilizing really useful and valid for people? Is posting content going to solve their problem? Or should we just invite a group of our users to a coffee and understand what's behind so we can actually help them all? It might not be that blog post helped them. It might actually be that we just need to spend 15 minutes with them. And there's no AI yet that can actually get them to have coffee and buy them a coffee and listen to their problems, talk about their families, and make sure that they are comfortable enough that they can actually open themselves so that you can really understand what's the real motivation behind them trying to consume that content. We need to make that work and really understand the human and their motivations behind trying to consume our content or work with us as customers before we create or produce any collateral or any content to serve that purpose.
Thought leadership is an active growth driver. It's part of the marketing plan for a lot of businesses. How would a business leader understand if it's working? How do you measure success? Is it impressions? Is it sales? Is it leads?
So traditionally, a lot of marketers were caught on vanity metrics, and they convinced the world that likes and views and reach were very important. And don't get me wrong, like there is still an indicator of visibility and certain amount of success. But I think for someone working on a B2B industry where decisions take a long time and it's a little bit harder to measure success and to control the metrics, it's about looking at the long-term success of their actions, how their exposure or the cultural shift of a business is influencing pipeline, how your company is being referred to, how LLM models are citing us. But as a leader, in the end, there's still a human factor in understanding the effect of what you're doing, because it might reflect on invitations to speak. It might be on the amount of people that want to connect and have a coffee with you. It might be the qualitative feedback from your sales team when they are in conversations and people say that they came across your leader's content. It might be the amount of posts that are being shared by someone else. And obviously, a lot of those are reasonably subjective metrics that only say part of the story. But when you try to monitor and report on thought leadership influence and marketing influence rather than just pure traditional ROI and the traditional metrics, and you try to combine how you show the trust and credibility of your brand and personal brand, then you start seeing a little bit of a picture of how that had an effect.
If I'm running a B2B business and listening to this thinking, we're probably not making enough of the people and expertise we've got, where should I start?
Start by listening to your customers. Start by understanding the questions that they're asking to your support team, to your sales team. What are the things that we're not so good at answering yet? And that technical people within our team can answer for ourselves without having to try to create an illusion. So try to understand your customer, their motivations, their challenges, make a prioritization pipeline for your future content. Try to understand, talking to your sales team, to your technical teams, what are the things that cause the most friction? What are the things that we need to be addressing? Because this is going to be great marketing content, but it's also going to be great strategic content for the internal decisions that you need to make. Once you got that, start little by little, but try to talk to your team and let them understand that by you creating this content, you might be reducing the amount of tickets that they need to answer to resolve these issues. That maybe the expectations that we create as a marketing or sales team are a little bit more closer to the actual delivery of what we can do. So start by understanding what are the things that your customers and prospects care about, and start touching on those and embedding those within your content.
As a business leader, sometimes I've got a large-ish team. How should I identify inside the organization that expertise, and what should I get those people doing first?
It's actually reasonably easy to find expertise within your team because most often they're not. You already know them. You know who comes to you when you need to do a customer demo, who you're asking the questions to when a customer comes to you and say, I've got an issue with X. So if you already know who your technical experts are, if you already know who, when you're in a big boardroom or you're in a town hall or something, and you know who is the one raising the hand and making a comment about something, you also know who is the most eager to contribute and participate and to help solve a problem. You already know who people with less social skills or with a better understanding or being more passionate about a particular topic. So it is up to you not just to identify them, but to make it easy for them to share what they know and to participate. Rather than hide them in the server room, are they eager to participate and to get their exposure? Yes. Okay, let me help you. This is how we're going to do it. Let me show you what that looks like so that it feels a little bit less daunting. Now, if that person is a little bit less eager or they are a little bit more private, it's like, you know what? We're going to find ways to actually expose your knowledge, what you know, and how it can be useful to other people without putting you in an uncomfortable position.
Javier, if there's one thing a business leader listening to this today could take away from our discussion, what would it be?
Authority and credibility build trust. Humanity builds relationships. That trust and those relationships translate into business. So if you want to improve, grow, accelerate your business, you need to work on your credibility, your authority, and your humanity.
I think what's fascinating about this conversation is that businesses spend enormous amounts of time thinking about how their brands show up, while often paying far less attention to how their people show up. And in B2B especially, those people may be one of the most powerful sources of trust a business has. Not because every CEO needs to become an influencer, not because every engineer needs to become a salesperson, and certainly not because the world needs more content for content's sake, but because inside most organizations, there are people with genuine expertise, credibility, and relationships. And making more of that visible can influence how the market sees the business behind them. Javier, thank you so much for your time this week.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure catching up, Adam. I'm really loving your podcast. Thanks for sharing with us, and really thanks for having me.